and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist Podcast. What kind of accent is that?
I don't know.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist Podcast. I'm Danielle. This is my co-host, Ani Rivera. And last week was her birthday. Have everyone say happy birthday. Happy birthday.
31.
She's 45.
Yeah, 73.
73. She looks great, though.
It's my skincare routine of nothing.
How your birthday was good?
It was rad. My boyfriend and I, we stayed at the Ritz and just chilled. And I fell asleep at 8 o'clock one night. That wasn't really nice. Got a lot of sleep.
Oh, man. I hate when that happens.
Oh, I love it.
I love it. But then, you know what? If I fall asleep too early, then I wake up at like 1 a.m. and I'm like jazzed. And I'm like, bing. Oh,
yeah.
Where did
he finished my library, which is really what I super cared
I saw
about.
That.
Oh, it's almost beautiful.
Where is that in your house? That is a big room.
It's like the office upstairs.
I didn't even know you had an office up there. I'm like, where did she put that?
It's because it's 3 bedrooms, but that third one is like upstairs.
Is it all books? Like everything? I mean, I saw it. I was like,
I also have my work desk in there, so I think I can put a few more shelves in. But
you
that
need
was
a ladder.
Like the main
Did he
one.
build like a ladder?
He's going to. That's next.
Yeah, like I have a ladder. Well, in my last house I did. It's like a shoe ladder, but yours is a book ladder.
Mine's books. Yeah, I had so much fun, and I only scolded him once because he thought it would be funny to go through as I'm putting up books. I'm a fucking psychopath. Like, you can pretty much touch anything in my house, hands off of my fucking books. Like,
do you color coordinate them and like they're by the
Oh
author?
my God, no, but I've seen people do it and I'm like, how do you find any book? You're a monster. Like,
I know.
Mine's by like category, author, and he started moving some like an inch forward or an inch back, and I look at him, I go, what are you doing? I'm like, stop doing that. And he was like, I go, you know what? I go, I'm sorry.
Jeez.
That reaction was a bit much. I go, I apologize. Can you please get your fucking hands
like,
off my books?
Wait,
though?
I'm sorry. You just built an entire library. Don't touch it.
Don't touch it.
You know, you want to hear a funny story? So we moved last week, and the closet we have, everything's built in. And I am a shopaholic. I'm not shy to admit that. I don't see it as a problem. But anyways, the master bedroom, I'm like, babe, there's not enough room for all my stuff here. Like, you're going to have to go in the next door closet. So there's a room next to our room that
You're such a dick.
Because I was like, listen, I can put half my stuff here and then half my stuff in there. Or you can just put all your stuff in there. So that's what he did. And it was so crazy. Like, all my shoes and everything are organized. And he comes in, he's like, I feel like I got ripped off. He's like, can I just? I'm like, no, you cannot. I was like, stay out of my closet.
Your closet though is super weird.
It is weird.
How do you feel about it?
I don't know if I like it. Okay, you know, I'm actually kind of messy by nature, and I like, I'm like organized chaos. That's what I always say, and I like it because like everything's closed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. Maybe it's good for me. I don't know.
I just feel like knowing you're gonna forget about something for 3 years. You know what you should do? Okay, I have an idea. I do this with my closet. I have one area of new shit I've bought that I haven't worn.
Ooh, I like that idea. Ooh, oh my God. You're like, this goes in, because I do that. I color coordinate everything, but then I forget I buy shit.
Yes. So for me, I literally have one
That's
whole
a good
area.
idea where anything with tags on it goes in that
Anything
spot.
with tags, and once I wear it, it can get hung up in like the normal spot. That way, everything of mine gets worn.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to do that. Thanks.
Nailed it. You're welcome, Garrett. Or sorry, I don't know.
Oh, I know. It's fine. But hey, okay. So this week, I was trying to think of like what she's laughing at me because I went back to church, and every week when we come to do the podcast, I'm like, so she's like, I'm not fucking going back to church. I'm like, I'm not. You know, it's so funny.
Like, I went to church. I was like, oh, fuck.
When I go to church, like, it's so funny because even like Garrett's like, I don't know how I feel about Christ and God and this and that and that. I'm like, you know, for some weird reason, everything he talks about, I relate it back to work. I'm like,
do you know what I think is bullshit? It has nothing to do with religion. I think it's funny because you will be praised for going back to church, and I'll be like condemned for not going. Like, it's so much easier for people to accept someone saying like, oh, I went to church. Everyone's like, oh my God, that's so great. But I'm like, I'm not going to church. I don't like it. I don't like believe in it. And people will be like, oh.
You know, I'm the same way though. Like, I grew up very Mormon. You grew up very Catholic.
Yeah.
And organized religion to me, I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't tell me that you think you're a better person because you're hitting the checklist. I feel like I'm way more in tune with myself, with God, with higher self, with source, with energy, whatever you want to call it.
I know way too many dickheads that all go to the same fucking church, and I'm like, you're literally a piece of shit human.
Right.
Don't preach at me.
And I've gone to a ton of different churches, and I don't know why. I just kind of this year I felt like I needed to break up my routine. But like I said, I don't.
Good for you.
It's not. I've kind of like let go of like that anger of being like fuck church. Like, I'm literally just like, hey, I want to go and feel. I just want to feel happy and like feel inspired.
I'm not mad at it. Like, I don't care that you go. Like, if church makes you happy, like anyone who's listening, if church makes you happy and like fills you up, fucking go for it.
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
not going to because for me. Like, it doesn't like do anything for me.
There was a phase for me where I was going and I was like, this is a waste of my time. Not only am I not getting anything out of it, but now I'm kind of getting angry at the other people, and that's not them. That's on me. Like I need to not go. And then so I just try to like listen and be like, okay, I'm gonna go for now. Maybe I won't go later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like everything, like even going back to my house that we just recently got, like it was a big jump for us.
Yeah.
And I kind of go into things like thinking like, okay, let's entertain this idea. And if it happens, it's meant to happen. And so everything kind of like, same with our last house, like everything just kind of carried out really smoothly. And I look at this place like, okay, well, what am I called to do next? Who is the bigger person that I'm supposed to become? Because it's a massive fucking castle. Like it's a huge house. I mean, like it wasn't a small leap. And I'm like, okay, like this happened so smooth. So who am I supposed to become? And it was funny, last night we were having a Super Bowl party and everyone teases me about my alter ego.
Yeah, Susan.
Yeah.
She's the best.
and
was that Susan texting me last night? Because I was like,
a few people, well, I was a few cocktails down.
I know.
But a few people were like, is Susan coming out? Like my inner circle. And I go, you know what? Susan died when I moved into this house. Like she's not at that level. She can't come in. We locked her out. If she comes out, it's a very, very, very small circle that gets to see Susan.
Susan's the best. Susan's I remember
naughty.
Susan from my 30th. She was rad. Susan should go to church.
Susan died. Susan should go to church and repent and pray a lot.
Girl, you need to go to, what is it, confessions?
Yeah, Susan needs to confess.
Oh my God.
No, but you know what? It's, like I said, like I've been going back and everything I hear, I kind of like pertain it, like for some reason it goes back to me like work. And one of the things that I have two topics that I want to talk about today.
Yeah.
One is consistency, which I like everyone will say like, Danielle, you're super disciplined, whether it's like with work or working out or whatever. And I'm like, I don't like the word discipline because I think people associate the word discipline as being hard. And I'm like, no. I would say I'm consistent. And with small consistencies, it leads to big wins. And I think that people, what they do is they like start down a path, whether it's like working out, relationships or whatever, and they don't give it enough time. They're not consistent enough. They're like, I did a 3-day cleanse. I'm still fat and bloated. You're like, you gave it 3 days. Now you're on the keto diet. Now you're on the macros diet. Like give it consistency. And same with work. People be like, oh, I've been hustling behind the chair for like 2 years. I'm like, I've been hustling behind the chair for 20 years. Give it some time and don't keep you can't like keep switching up what you're doing. So consistency is something that I really want to talk about. And then another thing I want to talk about is so we always say if you're not progressing, you're regressing.
Yep.
And I genuinely believe that. Like, do you ever see somebody and you're like, you're on fire? Like, their countenance is different. And it's almost like they're not standing still. Like, they're growing at such a rapid rate. Like, they literally are, like, beaming light. And then you see somebody where you're like, you're kind of just hollow, right? If you met people like that, you're like,
yep.
I get nothing out of you. Like, I'm like, hello, knock, knock. Is anybody in there? And there's nothing there.
I feel like I can also at this point gauge the people that say they're all about growth and growing and being better, but it's like like you say it, but you don't reflect that.
And you know what? In growth, like you have to let go. You have to submit in order to grow. Like, so you have people that talk about self-help and they talk about this and that, but they're so stuck in the drama that creates fulfillment for them that they stay stuck.
Dude, or the people that they're like, I read this self-help book. I'm like, did you apply any of it to your life?
No.
Stop fucking telling me you read a book if you're not going to implement anything that you learn. That's why, like, even when people come to our education and they're like, you don't understand, like, I did it. I'm like, did you do it? Did you just read about it? Did you half-ass do it? Because with all due respect, like, I've seen the results that come.
You don't understand. People sometimes, like, everybody lives in their stories, right? And everybody has, like, their purpose. And purpose, everyone always thinks, like, oh, I'm living in my purpose. Purpose can also be, like, drama. Like, your purpose is, like, you get filled up by the drama and that's your purpose in life. But that's a sucky purpose. You know what I mean? Like, I was on a walk jog the other day and I heard these two women probably in their like late 40s, mid 50s, and they're like, and like the conversation was so hollow and dramatic, and I just felt the energy as I was like brushing by them, and I thought, how sad, like, is this their morning routine that every morning they look forward to get together and like dump this word vomit of drama?
And
like,
here's my thing.
I don't get it.
As Danielle and I are saying this, who popped into your head? Honestly, like because immediately I thought of one name and I almost said it out loud and I was like, oh my God, I think the person listens to the podcast. I can't do that. But like, and I know that this person does that. I know that she is like this, and I have fully detached her from my life.
Yeah.
And I did it in such like a quick movement because I recognized it. I was like, oh my God. Every time I talk to you, it's not like, oh my God, how are you? What's new? It's like, oh, hey girl. Okay, but did you hear about?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
but it's because that gives them purpose and validation. And if they didn't have that, they're like, what do I do? Well, what do I do? They get like almost like panicky. You're
Definitely.
Like, well, what could you do?
Well, and even jumping back to consistency, because I do totally agree. I think that a lot of times people don't give something a long enough span of time.
Right.
But I also feel like they quit immediately the first time they hit a speed bump. Like the first one that they're like, ooh, that didn't feel good. That kind of sucked. That wasn't the result I wanted. They quit. And I'm going to use myself. I'm not going to church, but I am surfing now.
I did. I saw you post something. I was like, who took that photo?
A random lady at the beach.
It's like,
literally.
I was like, did she hire a photographer? I was
No,
like, wow.
but
like
it's a
Mo's
brilliant
in the back,
idea.
and he's like,
But no, we literally got out of the ocean and a lady's like, hey, like I'm trying to be a photographer. I bought this
cute.
camera. I'm just practicing.
Oh, okay.
Can I send you your photos? I'm like, that'd be rad. Yeah.
Oh, cute.
But even like, so I went surfing again. This was last week, Wednesday. And first off, it's not easy for me to go on the weekends or during the week. I've realized none of it's easy. So I just made time. I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to go 6:30 a.m. on a Wednesday when I need to be at work by 9 because I had a work call. And I was like, I'm just going to have to make it happen. And I did. I've never been so cold in my life. But even with that, I got the shit beat out of me that day.
What beach were you at?
We were in Laguna.
Oh,
girl. We were walking towards and I'm like, oh, fuck me. There's fog everywhere. I can feel the cold in my bones.
Yeah, it's been foggy.
Oh, yeah. And at one point when I was surfing in, the wave just caught me. I flipped and he's like, the waves are bigger today. He's like, the minute you go under, he goes, you need to come back up and look behind to make sure you're not going to get wrecked. And I did. It turns out you can stand up too quickly. My board had gone up and then it went
came down and hit you
directly on my head. I was like, I'm going to drown. This is how I go. But that happened. I got literally turned over. I got wrecked by a wave.
Though. It looks like you caught a few. Did you go by
almost-
yourself? Just you and Mo?
Just me and Mo. It was rad.
But then that's like, before it was like 3 of us. And so you're sitting in the water and you're cold. At least there, it's like you just have one-on-one coaching and like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But even inside of that, like that was not the easiest day. By the way, I learned my lats.
Welcome to fitness, Ani.
I called my boyfriend and I go, I think I found a new muscles. He goes, let me guess your lats. I'm like, is that this? He's like, yes. I was like, they hurt so bad. But even with that, I was literally in pain afterwards.
Yeah.
Like I could barely move my arms for like
you're
3
growing,
days.
Girl.
That hurt. The waves beat the shit out of me. A surfboard fell on my head. I inhaled enough water to literally like I took half the ocean.
But don't you like, you're like, this is awesome.
I loved it. I'm going again this Wednesday morning.
Beast Ani's going to come out, I'm telling you.
Dude, I literally, even Steven, it's so hard to get me to work out, but even inside of consistency, sometimes guys, like working out is not my thing. I don't care. I'm 97 pounds, guys. Like you really can't like make me work out. I don't give a shit. But because now I want to be faster at paddling and better at surfing.
I was going to say.
Now I'm going to start working out particular muscle groups.
Yeah.
Yep. Just because I want to be better. But it's funny that it took something else to inspire me to work out, even though I know I should have been working out. And sometimes that's what happens when you almost like broaden like your horizons and go outside of your comfort zone and you find something you love.
Right.
And I could tell you, I could have fucking quit Wednesday. He goes, do you want to stop? I'm like, a few more, a couple more. Even though I was like, there's a photo of me shivering in the ocean. It's hilarious. But in those times where you're like, this is really hard, it's not as easy as I expected, that's when I feel people give up. Right. Because they're like, speed bump, guess it's not for me. Okay, but it could be for you, though.
Right. I think that you have to have just like an inkling of success. Like you caught a wave, like, you know what I mean? So when you do, you're like, okay. And it gives you that hope to kind of continue to push. You're not going to be a pro overnight. No. Like you're just not. And I like, again, consistent, like people always say like discipline or this and that. And you're like, no, I'm consistent. I consistently decided to go surfing twice a week. I made time for it. Like everyone's like, I don't have time. And they 10 years goes by, 15 years goes by, 20 years go by, and I see so many people settle into how lack of what they could have created in like 10 years. You know what I mean?
Yes. And even like, and I'm the perfect example, like because I don't like working out, that's my excuse. I'm like, I don't have time. You're telling me I don't have time to walk into my garage that has like basically a full gym at this point, work out for 30 minutes, but I have time to.
You have a gym in your garage?
Steven, we have a home gym now.
Oh my God.
He loves working out. he's like he's all about working out.
That's
and
funny.
I'm not. But I couldn't walk into my garage and work out for 30 minutes, but I can get my bitch ass up, drive 15 minutes down the road, get a wetsuit, walk into the ocean, be in the ocean for an hour, come back out, come back. Like, it's all about what you make time for and what you choose to be consistent with.
What you prioritize and you stay consistent. Yeah. I know. It's funny because I keep going. It's so funny because a lot of people are asking me lately about my fitness, and I'm like, they're like, you're disciplined, this and that. I'm like, I'm really not. I'm consistent. And the thing is, like, even if you think about, like, say a diet, I know you're like naturally thin, like you have no issues. You can eat cookies all day and that's fine. But most women, that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
And even me, like, I couldn't eat like you. I would.
But you know what I will say? I actually eat pretty healthy. Like, yes, I love my sweets, don't get me wrong, but I have 2 breakfasts every single morning and they are healthy. It's not like shit
Let me
pizza.
ask you this. Are you consistent with what you eat?
Every single day.
And you're not trying to diet and crash diet and cleanse and try all this shit.
My entire life, I've always had 2 breakfasts. The minute I wake up, I eat something.
You're consistent.
Before I leave the house, and then I eat a meal every 3 hours.
That is the biggest thing that I learned during, like, training for my bikini competitions last year is consistency. Because the minute you go to cut, like, if you're like, I eat the same shit every day, and people are like,
bro, chicken and rice for me every day.
Literally, and people were like, doesn't that get boring? I'm like, I'm too busy to care. And what happens is people want, like, flexible dieting and macros and all this. I'm like, you're actually creating complicated dieting because you're saying you want flexible dieting, but then you're overcomplicating it, and then you end up not eating at all. And then one day you have 2,000 calories, and then one day you have like 200 calories.
2 calories.
And then one day you have a cookie, and your body's like, what the fuck is going on?
And that's when body goes into starvation mode, and that's when you gain weight.
And then you're like, I'm trying all this shit, and you're like, you're like keto diet one day, cleanse one day.
Do you know what's
like, you can't do that.
Because, and here's what blows my mind, because you're not willing to do the one thing that would actually help. Like, there's one thing you need to do. If you want to lose weight, you just have to look at what you eat. Like, honestly, like,
and you have to stay consistent. Like, like, even if like I remember freaking out when I first started eating, like, healthier, and I was like, I'm not. She's like, my nutritionist was like, you're flat out not eating enough. I'm like, I can't eat more. I'm gonna gain weight. I'm trying to lose weight because I was trying to lose my baby weight. She's like, no, you won't. She's like, do this and stay consistent. Give it 2-3 weeks. And I was eating more, and then my body all of a sudden was like, thank you. And then I dropped like 5 pounds immediately.
Yes.
I was like, okay. I was like, well, but it's like counterintuitive to what we think is what we should do.
Because everyone wants a quick fix, and that's the fucking problem.
Work like that.
Everyone thinks, well, if I stop eating, then my body will burn more fat. No, your body freaks out, and it's like, oh my God, I'm starving. Yeah. Every single piece of fat and calorie that comes in, we need to save it because we're going to be starved again. Right. That's what your body is doing. So it could also be that I'm 31 years old and 97 pounds because my entire life
you've done the same thing.
I've done the same thing, and I don't engorge myself. I eat until I'm full, and then I'm done.
Same. I hate. Actually, last night I woke up this morning and I was like, I don't eat I eat pretty healthy, and like we had like a chef at our house, so we had like empanadas and pizza. And I don't normally eat that shit, but I was like, fuck it, I went ham.
Yeah.
And I woke up this morning and I worked out with Val this morning at 7:30. I'm like, I'm just gonna get it done. I'll get it out of the way. And she laughs at me every time I eat like shit. She's like, you have like a food hangover. I'm like, I know. My whole face is like swollen. I'm like, the pizza was so good.
You're sweating pepperoni.
Literally. She's like, are you gonna get through this workout? I'm like, this is the walk of shame as I'm like lifting weights. It was funny.
You're like, I might not.
But if you think about it, like, yes, like successful people, the thing that I hear about them is they're consistent, right? And your body starts to crave consistency, whether it's in work or working out, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I need to get up, do my routine, and go to work. And I consistently do that every day. Sometimes weekends are hard for me.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, I'm so used to having like something on my plate every single day that if I'm not busy, I get a little bit depressed and like panicky. I'm like,
we stayed at the Ritz this weekend, Saturday and Sunday morning, 5 a.m. I'm like, dink.
I can't sleep in.
And I'm looking at my boyfriend and I go, hey, I'm like, what are you doing? I go, are you awake? And he goes, well, I am now. He's like, go back to bed. I'm like, I can't.
7:30 is sleeping into me. I can't.
Oh my God, 6 is sleeping in for me. Ooh. Like 6, if I'm sleeping at 6, I'm like, my day is gone. I panic. I don't like it. Yeah, so even though I was supposed to sleep in, I didn't. I was up at 5 o'clock.
I can't. Even if I would go to bed or sleep shitty, like my body like
because your body clock.
6:30, I'm like,
because you're consistently up at 6:30. It's your body
every
clock.
Sunday, I'm like, no, go back to bed. And then my brain turns on. I'm like, I can do this and this and this and this and this, and I can't do it. But you know what?
I've been there.
I just feel like for everybody who says I can't do something, I would just challenge you to pick one thing and stay consistent with it. More than like 2 days, 3 days, 3 weeks. Like, literally set targets, set goals, stay consistent, and see what happens.
And for me, it's simplify.
Yes.
If you're like, okay, I want to get into working out, cool. But it doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm going to do an hour of Pilates and 35 minutes of yoga and then 45 minutes of stretching. Too much. Just
Too much.
Move your body for 30 minutes. I don't care what you're doing. Literally, just 30 minutes. Just do something.
You know that it's funny, again, going back to like a lot of women are asking me questions recently, and I'm like, and then I ask them a few questions about what they're doing. I'm like, they're doing like these HIIT workouts and tons of, I'm like, your body is like, whoa, like you need to simmer that down. You went from like nothing to doing like HIIT workouts 6 days a week. Your body's swollen. Like you're not seeing results because your body is angry. It's like slow down, like implement a couple things with your diet, implement 30 minutes a day, start there. No wonder you gave up. You went balls to the walls and your body's like, please stop.
How about my little arms this week?
I can't move my lats.
And the fact that my boyfriend, he's been trying to get me to work out with him at 4 a.m., by the way. So I'm like, no, I'm not fucking doing that.
Like 6.
But see, that's commitment. Good for you, sir. I mean, you look great, but I'm not doing that. And he's like, I can show you lat pull-ups and this and that. And I was like, you know what? I was like, you're only convincing me because I want to surf faster. I still need a boost right now. I want to be boostless.
You know what? I can respect it. I got Garrett into lifting for like 6 weeks and he like shredded down and I was super annoyed. I'm like, you like shredded down in like 6 weeks. And then he was like, I'm over it. I'm going back to surfing. I was like, oh, well, it's fine. It's fine.
Off topic on topic though. When we got to the beach, Mo, he's my surf coach. He was like, okay, he goes, I'm going to give you more instruction today because I listened to your podcast. I was like, that wasn't a dig. I was like, oh my God.
He listened to the podcast?
He listened to the one where I was like, we got 45 seconds of instruction.
Oh, jeez.
He did give me more, but it was really more about hand signals of like, you all right? Which we did actually.
Are you alive? He's like, wave to me if you're alive.
Literally, he was like, if I tap my head, that means something looked dicey. You need to tap back if you're okay or X and I'll come in. And so when the board hit me, I was coming up from the water. I'm like, oh, I'm okay, but I'm not okay.
He's like, you're sending mixed signals. I can't do it.
I'm a woman. What more do you want from me?
Oh, it's tricky to be a woman on that note, but that's another podcast for another time.
So really, oh, good Lord. By the way, I'm feeling like Garrett recently. I remember when he started surfing, every other sentence was about it. Every lesson he learned. I'm like, where are you getting all these lessons from? Now I'm like, weirdly, I kind of understand.
But that's kind of how I am with like my whole fitness thing. It's like once you get
obsessed. How you are with church right now.
I know. Yeah. You know, if you want to go back to that topic, we can. Like I was
about
literally, like my main message I got out of church this week is he was like saying like kind of how like, he said it in a more churchy way, but he's like, if you're like dying or decaying inside, like you lose the light. And I honestly believe if you're growing and like that kind of thing, you radiate light and people are attracted to that about you. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
And like you want to be on people's radar, then you have to be like constantly like letting that light in. You know what I mean?
And I feel like even if you don't realize that someone or something is like sucking the life out of you, like literally like stealing your light, kind of dimming it, you may not always notice, but other people do. And I feel like I've experienced that when in like relationships that I've had here where like I've ended things and people have been like, oh, you're back. And I'm like, I never felt like I was different.
Right. It's so crazy when you see people that you haven't seen in a while and you're like, whoa, you look good. And they're like, I got divorced. And you're like, that was a good move for you. Like, you look light. You look alive. Like,
you should do that more often.
As bad as that sounds, you're like, wow, good job. Like, you look, your countenance is back. You know what I mean?
And for me, I feel like I've realized that. And guys, this also applies to your business, whether it's assistants, whether it's staff, whether it's managers, clients. It doesn't matter. If someone leaves the room and goes away from me and I'm like, thank God they're gone. And I feel lighter without them, you are out of my life.
Yeah, totally.
You're done. And honestly, the last few boyfriends I've had, that's how it ended up ending, that I was like, oh my God, I love it when you leave. Well, we shouldn't be together anymore.
You have to be so protective of your energy because like, honestly, it affects other relationships you have. So even if you have like a couple toxic relationships, that might then bleed in over to your relationship with your husband or your boyfriend or whatever.
It will.
It will.
Yeah.
And so for me, like the more powerful I get as a human being, and I was talking about this last week, I'm like, my bubble shrinks. And it's not that I am not friendly and I don't notice people, but I'm like, you get 3 minutes of my day today. You know what I mean? I'm like,
yes.
Or even if I know they're that, I can tell right away if they're like the lights are out. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, I close, like I call it like close the doors. I'm like, nope, you don't get in. I'm like, I'm friendly, but I like don't, I'm like,
you're not in my bubble, in my space.
I'm not gonna, we're not gonna sit here and talk. Like if I'm at a party or mingling and I can tell there's that kind of
I hate it's like that
energy sucker. Yeah. It's like I immediately am like, well, it's good to see you, and I just walk away. Like I'm like, I can't even be stuck in this conversation for 10 minutes.
Yes, and I feel like you can gauge it so quickly, and it's almost the people who are like, oh my God, Danielle, how are you? So how is it in the new house? How are you?
You can immediately
you
feel
can tell
it.
It's like they're not really asking like, how are you and Garrett? They're like so like digging for something bad so that they can go and talk shit to their stupid fucking friends later. That shit drives me insane. You'll see now, because we know some of these same people that I'm like, I want nothing to do with you. Right. I cut those conversations so quick, like nothing. Like I'm friendly, I'm polite, but I have nothing to share.
Like people will be like, doesn't this person bug you? And I'm like, no, I've accepted that that's who they are. They don't want to change, and I'm not going to sit and judge them because that's where they're at. That like causes me stress.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I'm like, that's who they are, and that just means that I distance myself from that.
And that's what I mean. Like, you want to be this, cool, man. You do you, but I don't have to be around it. Being around it is a choice, and I choose to not. You know what else? I'm pretty fucking consistent in that too.
All right, so if we're going to leave you guys with one message today, number one, be very protective of your energy bubble. And number two, what is one thing that you know, one small thing, you don't need to go, one small thing. What's one small thing in both your personal life and your business life that you can implement this week? And I want you to do it for, let's say, 3 weeks?
It takes 21 days to create a habit.
Okay, see, 3 weeks, I knew. So do
fucking
it for
genius.
3 weeks. I don't want you to like revamp your whole business or, whatever it is. Like 2 small things, one in your personal life, one in your business, whether it's with fitness, surfing, lifting weights, whatever it is. Church, whatever it is. Change one thing and then message us. Tell us how it is.
Yeah,
like
DM us. Let us know what you changed.
Say, hey, like I changed this, and we'll be your accountability buddies. Every week for the next 3 weeks, we're gonna be like, where are you guys at with your consistency, both in your personal life and your business life? And let's see where this goes. Also, if you guys have any specific topics that you want us to talk about, you can. Where should they message us?
DM me.
DM Ani. I would say DM
more.
me. I don't check my DMs that often. So honestly, I've had people DM me about hair and stuff. So if you're listening to this podcast and you had questions about hair and you DM me and I didn't get back to you, please don't be offended. Honestly, all you have to do is go to our salon website, which is dkwstylingsalon.com. You fill out like the shortest application where we can get a little more hair information for you. We set up consultations over the phone. They're super chill, super casual. We can answer any questions, pricing, like anything you need. And my salon is open in Laguna Beach. We get tons of people fly in, travel in to experience Natural Beauty Rose. So don't be shy. Like you can always reach out, but just know if I miss your DM, like we have a website with an application. It's not that intimidating. I just want to know like what does your hair look like? And we recently opened up open enrollment for the Academy, but I think it closed today.
It is closed as of the time that you're listening to this, but we do have, we can't talk about it yet,
yes,
but we do have something really exciting coming up in the next like few weeks.
I want to like give them a little spoiler alert. Like
next podcast.
One spoiler?
A dinky spoiler.
A dinky spoiler. So I've had so many people that have just been like, hey, do you guys teach like, just the business marketing and sales for hairdressers? And we have a really cool virtual event that we're putting together for artists. So that was
dinky.
That was dinky. That's all you get. So stay tuned. Make sure you're on our email list. And we do a podcast every Tuesday. Make sure to share it with your friends if you find any value of this. I can't talk today.
If you want to be updated for our future classes, go to NBR. Go to NBR.education. And yes, we put a new podcast out every single week. And thank you for being with us. And we'll see you next week.